Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Bitcoin and Altcoin Trading Talk. I'm your host, Joe with Coinigy, joined by the wonderful Mr. Brian Beamish from therationalinvestor.com. How you doing tonight, Brian?
Oh, can't complain. Nobody listens when I do, though, so there you go.
I'm always here for the listening.
Actually, I'd say that's one good thing about you, Joe, is you have an empathetic ear, so that's always nice.
I
I have a
appreciate that.
broker's sentiment, I think. That's an old line that I used, because I used to, when I was a broker, man, you'd probably talk to like 500 people a day. And nobody really gives a shit about how you feel. So it's sort of like, okay, let's just get on with the pleasantries. What the hell do you want to do? You want to buy something? You want to sell? What do you want to do? Anyway, nice to be with you again, Joe. You
Likewise,
are a
thank you for
refreshing, what do we say? A refreshing spring breeze, fresh
this
air into the spring.
fresh air. It's that fall breeze, actually.
There you go. Actually, play a funny little Simpsons game on my video thing, and The Simpsons was actually based out of Oregon, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's actually the
So,
high school is Lincoln High School, which is right up the road here from me. And
uh,
then
yeah.
there's a walking bridge in Portland. So if those who don't know, the writer of The Simpsons is from Portland, Oregon. So he's got a lot of the stuff that a lot of ties in like the between characters' names, and some of the streets and stuff are named after things in Portland, like Flanders Street.
Yeah.
There's a walking bridge called the Ned Flanders Bridge, and there's a little plaque of Ned Flanders there. So.
Oh,
Pretty funny.
that's
Yeah, it
interesting.
says like, "Hey,
So
diddly ho, neighbor, welcome to my bridge."
there you go. So you got to start the broadcast with a heidely ho.
Yeah. Well, we got some
But
people in the chat here. Jay Wall and Raphael, welcome.
hello,
Thank you for
happy
joining us tonight.
good evening. And actually, by the time we get to the end of this, we have a fair number of people who are watching.
We are.
And
And
actually, I'd be
so
curious to see, do you have like a page on Coinigy where you're hosting these videos?
just on the
Interesting.
YouTube, we do have a ticket in to get them going on there. So based on waiting on some devs there, but it is in the works. But those who are watching this now, thank you for joining us. And those watching us later, please give us a like on the video. It's the best way to support these kind of videos so we can keep them going, get a little more viewership on these,
Mhm.
and get them to the masses. I think what Brian offers is pretty amazing, and you're not getting this type of stuff from anyone for free like you are with Brian on these types of videos. So uh, we do appreciate all the support. Adam, welcome. I see you just joined us.
Hey, there's our regular
Awesome.
Californians.
Yeah. So we got from Raleigh, North Carolina. Got some from California. So we're all across the U.S. up to Canada, up with you, Brian.
Oh
But
goodness, don't
before we
say
kind of
that
jump
word.
in,
That's almost like a four-letter word these days. Can't believe what these people. Yeah, the what they're doing here is just it's turning it into like oh, I mean, I don't even know what you say. It's shocking what they're doing to this country. So sad. Anyway,
it is, yeah, a lot of
I've
stuff going.
maybe I can use you as a sponsor, but I used
Love
to
to.
live down in LA. I loved living down in the States. Um, I'm
Brian, I'd
seriously
sponsor you in a
considering about
heartbeat.
relocating.
Come on down. Come move south.
Yeah. Mind you, the housing situation is just about as bad in Oregon as it is in BC, eh? I'm not quite sure why
That's
the West Coast housing is the way that it is, but it's so twisted.
it is.
So
It's
bizarre.
up there in prices, but
Yeah.
coming from the Midwest, I do still love it out here. The
Yeah,
weather,
that's right. You're from
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
We're in
Yeah, there you
Wisconsin.
go. Actually, and the Coinigy sort of got its roots from that part of the world too, eh? With
Yes,
Will and
sir. That's
Laura.
how I actually started. Was group as did pro bono consulting work for a group project for a capstone class with my undergrad.
Hmm.
Uh, Talked to William at the end of it. Started with an internship and then turned into full time. Here we are 6 years later at
Oh,
Coinigy.
congratulations!
I'm loving it.
Obviously,
So Yeah, it's started there and all started in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and now got
Yeah.
users all over the world now. So it's been a awesome wild ride. So
Well, hopefully I can lend a little bit of educational. You see me do these charts over and over and over and over and over,
and got
and
like you said, always got your notebook ready. So
yeah, that's right.
so
That's why I think
your
embedding these videos
journals
on the site would be a good idea because then that way, people can come to the site and just like learn right on the platform.
agreed.
Anyway, we'll cross that bridge when it comes to it. From what
Yes.
I understand, Coinigy's got some new things on the go, eh?
Yeah, so actually you guys are kind of getting the first news of this. Keep an eye on our social media. Next week we should be pushing out a cool another new feature for some Coinigy users. It's called a returns radar. You should be able to see like some monthly and quarterly returns for given cryptocurrencies. I won't go too much into it, but keep an eye on our Twitter for next
You know
week.
what you should really do for whatever it's worth, and maybe, write this down, tell the higher ups. You should have a relative performance gauge. Like I was, like Joe told me about this a little while ago, and I was sitting here going, "Now, how on earth can we use this?"
Mm-hmm.
But what would probably be a good application is sort of an old stock market story. Um, there's a gentleman by the name of William O'Neill who created the Can Slim. You ever heard of Can Slim?
I
Maybe you
think
have, maybe
so.
you haven't. Anyway, it's a very popular stock screening model. How to identify stocks that are going to go crazy. It's probably worth paying attention to
Okay.
if you do trade stocks. But the point is one of the criteria of CanSlim is relative performance to the broader market. And if you're investing in something, you'd like to see that your asset is outperforming the benchmark. And usually in the stock market, you use something like the S&P 500. So there's like a relative performance. So that would probably be a really handy metric to use in that kind of grid. How have assets done relative to something like the S&P 500 over the past 30 days, 90 days, 1 year? That would actually be really useful.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate that. And as I mentioned before, we're always open to feedback from the users of Coinigy. So definitely pass that one on up to the developers and see what we can do there.
Yeah.
But quite the week in cryptocurrency, I'd say, with some of this stuff with both FTX, his trial, and
Yeah,
that
it's turning really ugly, eh?
disaster.
So it's ironic that the one person who actually is going to probably suffer the most, other than, I mean,
Mr.
who knows what
Bankman.
the hell happens to that SBF guy. But I think probably the one person that their career is going to be the most damaged by all of this is going to be Mr. Gensler, which is
I
ironic.
I know. I agree with that. That's gonna be interesting to see how that plays out there.
Yeah,
Uh,
because like just a few years ago, yeah, you've heard me talk about university professors, right?
Precise. Yes, I
Do I
have.
have a high uh,
Nope,
perception of the value of university professors?
not particularly.
I mean, obviously they're knowledgeable, and of course and a lot of them have doctorates and Nobel prizes and all that kind of fun stuff. But as people who are going to give you investment advice, they are notoriously horrible because they don't have any skin in the game. They stand up there, in their pulpit and fucking preach to the audience, and it's not like somebody in the class can stand up. I mean, hell, you're right in the middle of the university experience, right?
Yes, sir.
You can't stand up and say, "I'm sorry, Mr. Professor, I think you're wrong." How does that go over? And trust me,
Not quite.
from personal experience, I've done it and it doesn't go over very well. So, anyway, so the point is, a few years ago he was sitting there at MIT, and when you're one of these tenured professors, you pretty much you can do whatever the hell you want, right? And you can say whatever
Mhm.
you want. And there's no repercussions. Good part about it is he's now in reality, and he's seeing in things like courts of law and stuff like that. He's seeing that actually in the real world you can't do that. That's breaking the rules. You going and just carte blanche saying thou shalt do this, thou shalt do that. You can't do that stuff. So actually, if anything, I'm quite pleased to see that his feet are being held to the fire, and it should be a message to all of these politicians. And I've said it before. I think before we were started recording, or maybe it was when we were recording, how much I actually really admire the United States of America. And what's going on in my country is it's borderline criminal, to be honest with you. Um, but that's the one thing I really like about the United States is there's like a set of rules that even the highest of high, you will have your day in court. So anyway, it's cool to see that SBF is having his day in court, and
Yeah.
ironically enough, politicians, quasi university professor, government agency people are being held to account for their nefarious behavior.
Yeah,
So
I saw something today where they were conspiring. They admitted to conspiring to keep Bitcoin under 20,000 by selling the user's Bitcoin
yeah.
itself, which is
And
just
when the
wild.
Americans use the word conspiracy, whoa, you guys love that word.
Yeah,
That's like a hot button word. Conspiracy. That's great.
that's too funny. Well, getting into trading, I saw you had a pretty big win this week. Up,
Yeah,
or,
the thing is it's just you're playing the game correctly when you look at like a 400x return on a trade and you go, it's just business as usual. It's not really that big of a deal. you know?
you're doing it right, but I think that it goes to show by using some of these tactics and, or I guess just methods, and I don't know, going through the process of making your three reasons for a trade and like measuring your emotional, like where you are at emotionally in those trades. A lot of the stuff that we've talked about shows that it can have like work in that regard. And I think so. The reason the coin we're talking about is Loom, and I don't know if you want to pull up a chart there, but it's really
Where was the loom? I
there we
guess we
go.
had it.
Loom.
These, especially with the whole DeFi thing, and then of course people in North America are not allowed to. What exchange are you allowed to be on? What aren't you allowed to be on? All that kind of stuff. Oh man, it's a bit tricky these days. And actually, the cool thing about this one in particular was I was able to do the entire transaction on my ledger.
Wow.
So I've actually tried to force myself to move away from using these centralized exchanges. So that was something I was super, super excited about. And then also too, our CTO Sjord. We should probably have Sjord on one of these calls. And the only
I would
problem is
love to. I
it's
actually personally have never met him, so I would
yeah.
absolutely love to.
He's basically the brainchild behind this whole platform. And what are we supposed to think if you see M's staring you in the face in the market? Is that a good sign or a bad sign?
No bueno.
That's not a good sign. So, but anyway, and if anything, I've told people this before. This is the one good thing about technical analysis, and if you understand and know how to do it correctly, is the charts don't lie. The only problem is the humans. They really don't like to respect what the charts are saying. And anyway, so I suppose I don't know whether can we do a weekly chart here. What happens if we do weekly? What is this? This is on. Binance,
Yeah.
BNUS, is that Binance? Yeah. Although that looks like a little bit thin data. Something doesn't look right about that. Oh, this is Binance
So
US.
you're
That's
under
why.
recent. You have, if you click on the all tab to the right there,
Oh.
you should be able to see more.
Yeah, I mean to get like the full meal deal, I think we probably need to look at like Binance regular. There it is. That's the one I
Makes
was looking for.
sense.
So yeah, I mean you see that kind of chart and you're like, woo wee, look at me, I'm gonna get rich. Wow. But you know, hopefully what you see when you look at this is what letter of the alphabet does this look like down here?
That's a W.
That's the whole secret to this, folks. I mean, I hate to say it, but that image right there in a nutshell is everything I'm trying to teach you people. Um, it's really easy when you have an M top, right? You can say, well, what are you supposed to think if you see the market
Smiling at you.
smiling at you,
Wants all your
right?
money.
It's a little bit harder and to do W's. You kind of say, well, what are you supposed to think if you see the market smirking at you? I don't know. Anyway, you know, we used to have a guy on the site who used to call these J-Lo booty bottoms because if I understand correctly, she's got quite a bottom on her. So anyway, I mean, I learned this years and years and years ago. Actually, probably when I was around your age, I was in university at that time. The more action packed, the more colorful, the more descriptive, the more outlandish, the more, you know, over the top, emotional, the more all of those kind of things that you can associate with stuff you're trying to remember, the easier it is to remember. So like the you know the simple, what are you supposed to think if you see the market smiling at you and you think of like Joey Diamond and the 1% stealing your life and the Rothschilds, you know, making us all poor, right? You can think of this as like the 1% and they're smiling at you and they're evil and all that kind of fun stuff. If that makes it easy for you to remember this, then hats off to you, right?
You're quite the artist, Brian.
How can you? Oh yeah,
Picasso, if
that's
you will.
a butcher job of
The
a happy
Picasso
face.
of charting.
Anyway, I suppose if I'm doing Joey Diamond, I probably should have like a lozenge. That guy always seems to have a lozenge in his mouth. And this is like tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. Do you ever see the movie When Mars Attacks? I think that's what it was.
Mars.
And the Martian comes down and infiltrates the White House, and he
Yes,
has
I
to
have.
constantly eat like gum or whatever to make sure that he doesn't suffocate in the Earth atmosphere.
Yeah.
And you look at Joey Diamond, and 9 times out of 10, when you see him, he's got some sort of lozenge or something in his mouth. So is Joey an alien? I guess it would make sense considering how well he's done in this crazy world. But anyway, that's a conversation for another day. So this is actually a really, really straightforward, simple idea. Um, the issue, I suppose, half of our problem is can you get enough price data to actually put things into perspective? And I think that's why we were looking at Polo before. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's got a little bit more price data. Um, and well, I mean, yeah, we don't really have enough. I mean, Loom's been around for a while. And if anything, that's why I like trading commodities. And I think to all intents and purposes, cryptocurrencies are a de facto commodity, even though people don't really like to talk about them that way. But if you can get these things up and running, and there is some sort of inherent value to the network, and people are actually using it, these things they'll stick around a long time. They don't go anywhere. All right, so actually that's the image I kind of wanted you to see. This is going to look at it versus Bitcoin, but the point here is that, you know, here we were last, and
June, July.
actually, let's see, where are we here? I guess this is last summer, right there. Yeah, there we go. Got some data. Yeah, that's what I wanted you to see. Maybe we'll go back to that weekly chart, or maybe 3 day. Let's do the 3 day. So, you know, whenever half of the problem in this game is that humans, of course, are emotionally triggered. So we end up, of course, chasing up markets, and kind of like this. I'm sure there's probably a lot of people that are actually in here buying this asset right now, which I don't think is that smart of an idea.
Yeah, 'cause we talked briefly before the divs started to cool off a little bit.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that in a moment. Just let's
Yeah.
put this into context. Sort of talk about the whole what is it that I'm trying to teach you guys, and how do you benefit from this and all that kind of talk. So, here we were at the I guess well, I mean, here was summer last summer, right? So that's like last year, and this is this year.
Mhm.
So what if you want to make money at this game called capitalism,
Mhm.
and that's entirely up to you. I mean, you don't have to invest in a company looking to make money. In fact, I used to know some clients when I was a broker that they would actually buy stock just to prove that it's all a scam and it's all rigged. And they actually wanted to see the ideas fail, right? From a little junior broker kind of idea. It's a little tragic. It just goes to show the weird motivations of us humans. But if you are in this to try and make some money and you're speculating, then what you really want to try and find is assets that were way up top and have gotten absolutely decimated. That's a great place to start your search, your hunt.
Mhm.
Then, what you'd like to see, and it just so happens this has a line on this, but we don't necessarily need to have, and I wouldn't even use this as a trend line. I think that's a bad idea. So we'll get rid of the trend line. But, this is just really Mother Nature. Keep this simple, stupid. You should know this by now.
Yep.
So if you
38.
see, like what goes up must come down, what goes down must come up. If you bounce a ball out of a 10-story building and it's a rubber ball, how high is it likely to bounce? Do you have any ideas?
38.2 to the first stop target.
That's not a bad one, but I would even say there's an easier.
50%.
Keep it simple, right?
50%
38.2.
retracement.
Yeah, 38.2 is kind of an esoteric number, right? But what's nice and simple, and this is WD GAN
Yep.
50% rule.
Yep.
So, ironically enough, if you see an asset that's absolutely collapsed like this, the odds are pretty good that at some point down the road, it's just going to do that 50% bounce. Doesn't even necessarily mean that this thing's even that good of an investment. It might even mean that it goes up and then it comes right back down and goes off the board. But odds are you're probably going to see that some sort of bounce. I mean, it's just the way nature works. And of course, most of the people in the public, they can't conceive that. So, I also have another rule that I like to see markets on other sides of trend lines start to W out and all that kind of talk.
Hmm.
So we have an asset here in particular that was way up top. It got absolutely decimated. And the great part about venture cap is that this decimation happens like literally once every 4 years. Yeah, I would say Ubik is right down here at absolutely nothing, and we're waiting for the bounce. And I'm long Ubik.
We're
I
all
bought a
waiting
whack
on
of
it
it
so
at like,
Brian dyes his hair.
yeah, that's right. I mean, if it goes up to new highs, then I'll be doing the broadcast with purple hair. But think of Ubik now as like sitting down here doing absolutely nothing. Having said that, I would say that Ubik does have some particular challenges that something like Loom doesn't. I would say Loom is a much more mature asset. It's listed on a number of different exchanges. And we used to have a guy on the site years ago, pretty popular in this space, a guy named Da Vinci. And he even created a fundamental screen that we still have in our library that says the more exchanges that your name is listed on, the better. And this guy's hitting all of them, right? He's on Binance, right? That's sort of awesome. He's on KuCoin, so you know all the Korean kimchi guys are all going to be playing this. He's on Polo, right? So I might argue that they're kind of apples and oranges. Ubic's not even listed on any exchanges. So I think it might be still on Trex, but
And
we
that's
won't touch Trex
self-explanatory.
today.
Yeah.
So the point of the matter here is I first got interested in Loom when we broke this downtrend line and we were just bumping along there at the bottom end of the range. Because to me, that looks kind of cheap.
Yeah.
And what is the odds? And, you know, this is the irony of this kind of price action is if I can see an asset double, and that means I should be able to sell half on a double kind of idea
Yep.
and get basically a risk-free trade. So if I come in here and I'm buying, say, around this, this is 200 and some odd sats, you know, versus the US dollar, this was like a nickel, something like that. And, you know, what's it going to take for me to see this number double? It's not really that much. Remember, our natural bounce point was back to that 50% level, right? So, again, and as you had pointed out, and it's probably a good sort of rule of thumb, that you just say, you know what, let's use the bounce window 38.2 to 50%. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
And what I usually tell people, and it's, you know, it's right across the board, whether it be a commodity, stock indexes, cryptocurrencies, all that kind of stuff. At any given point in time, you should expect a 38.2 bounce.
And
It's just what markets do.
and you said that 38.2 to 50% is what you call Collins' dump chaser zone.
Well, it's what Colin calls Colin's dump chaser zone. Because Colin, I mean, one thing I like to do is, remember I said earlier, I like to have colorful, sort of, you know, vibrant images, ways for you to remember this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
38.2, that level was actually taught to me by an old New York Stock Exchange trader guy, a gentleman by the name of Ray Burchett.
Okay.
But that's not a really fun name to remember. Ray Burchett. I like to call it, like the name that I give it in the education program is the first stop target. And why? Because if you're going to have a bounce, and you can see, what do you think the odds are this son of a gun's going up into that first stop target number?
I could see
Probably
it.
pretty good, eh?
Yeah.
And, you know, what are the odds of this thing going up into 50% roll? You know, the irony of it all is you don't believe it until you actually see it. But what the hell? What's causing this to happen? I still really don't know what the hell's going on here. But nonetheless, am I going to complain if I'm banging out huge wins? No. and that's half the irony of
Banging out
capitalism
doubles.
is I don't even really care. You know, I used to tell people, and my sales managers used to hate this. I'd say, if I was sitting here in a diaper, smoking a cigar, and still giving you names like buy Loom down at a nickel and you're banging out wins at like 20 cents, would you care? Would it make any difference to you? You know, and the brutal reality is no, it wouldn't. Of course, you know. So, okay, just finish our story. If you looked at this chart, you know, as a gnarly veteran, and what hopefully happens with you is you have many, many of these 4-year cycles ahead of you. It'll be interesting to see where you are in your life 4 years from now, and then 8 years from now, 12 years from now. But and the great part about it with Bitcoin is whoever it was that built this thing, and actually we had an interesting debate on the site just recently over who actually created Bitcoin. And I think there is quite a bit of anecdotal evidence for it actually being created by a Japanese guy in cahoots with the NSA. I've always said CIA, but I'm getting the impression NSA is probably a better acronym to use.
I had a note last after our last show. I wanted to actually ask you. I said briefly I brought up. Who do you think Satoshi Nakamoto is?
Um, shall we try and actually? I'll just show you on the Twitter feed. And one of our longtime, well, long time. Yeah, he's been around the site for a few years. Eddie, he actually was posting this, and I did
Oh
see it
wow!
making the rounds again. This was a debate that was had back in 2013. You can see bitcointalk.org. You can actually see the date here, June 15th, 2013. Imagine if you were involved in Bitcoin then. Oh, geez, gonna make a couple bucks.
I bet you did.
But the scuttlebutt was that it's this Japanese gentleman, and he's interesting. His name is Tatsuki Okamoto. I don't know. I probably totally butchered that. Um, Look at his background, though, eh? Published books, cryptography, zero knowledge, cryptography, information
Big
security,
crypto
information
guy.
Japanese translation, modern cryptography, advent and advance of modern cryptography. I mean, come on. Look at the awards that he won here. Raise NTT, I can't even say, the words are too big for them to even come out of my mouth. I mean, they're ridiculous. Professional services. Look at this board member and
Jeez.
president of the Japanese Society of Applied Mathematics. I mean, the guy's like smarter than 20 of us put together, right?
That's
PhD committee member. Look at all this shit, right? He's on the ETH board. So, anyway, so the scuttlebutt is it's probably a guy like this. And then it may not be him, but like I said, that there's growing sort of talk and sort of consensus. Actually, I even saw it on I don't know. I think I've told you about Chico Crypto,
yep. You
but
have.
I kind of like him. I think he's a down to earth guy, and it's interesting when when um, when we get to the top of the market, I get really frustrated because I just sit here and I bark about how it's all a trap. You know, like fucking Allen and his stupid coin at 75 cents. But it's interesting, and I think, it's odd how this stuff happens, but it's kind of like uh, a certain vein of conversation starts, and then a whole bunch of other people all weigh in. And so Tyler did a pretty good piece here on who is the founder. You know, he has publicly suggested that Elon Musk is the creator of Bitcoin. I don't think that's the case.
Can you
But
even tell
actually, he
me?
did this video recently, and I do like this bent. And again, just sort of talking about, you know, back in 2013, this is the page that I gave you reference to there a
Yeah.
second ago. There he is there again, Tatsuki Okamoto. His name just keeps popping up over and over and over. And ironically enough, I think there are even shows that he was actually an employee of the NSA. So there you go. That if I was a betting man, this is where I'd be betting my money. And it kind of makes sense because if you understand the history of Japan, um, after the end of the Second World War, the Americans basically went in and just took over the country. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was a lot of people within the Japanese society that are kind of like, hey, we got to figure it out. We got to figure some way out of this. And the sad part about it, I don't know whether I've shown you or not, but the United States of America as the world's hegemony currency, its days are numbered. You can
Mm-hmm.
clearly see it in the hyperinflation of the money supply. What they're doing is unsustainable. So I could understand if it came from anywhere in the world. I could understand the Japanese sort of saying, you know what, this is, and we will be the people that will literally topple the hegemony model. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Interesting.
I'd also say too, though, that I do believe that, and this is where we get tinfoil hats, and it gets a little controversial, and you wonder whether sites are shadow banned because of sort of inflammatory statements and things like that. Yes, I am speaking to you, NSA agents listening to this call. I'm talking directly to you.
It's you.
Um,
You're saying it's not Craig Wright.
Craig, that guy was a challenge. One of the best moments in crypto was when Vitalik stood up. He was an audience member at some conference, and Craig Wright was sitting there on the stage, and Vitalik just tore a strip out of him and just embarrassed the hell out of him right in the middle of a massive public broadcast. I can't remember. Do you remember when that happened?
No, but that is too funny. Just went in on him.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess just the point being that there were, and how do you just to say this in a nutshell? The events that happened around 2001, we all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Seem a bit suspicious. At the same time, too, the policies that were put in place following that event, to me, also seem incredibly suspicious. So much so that it would not shock me to see that the people that pulled all this stuff off knew what the end game of the US dollar was, and so they put into place vehicles that would protect them from what Mr. Obama did, and really more what Mr. Ben Bernanke did, to try and save the U.S. economy after the absolute gutting of it by the Bush Jr. administrations.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think what's going to happen in history is Obama and Ben Bernanke and stuff are going to be blamed for the dilution of the US dollar and the collapse of the hegemony system over history. But I think it dates all the way back to there was a guy, a US politician, that literally stood up like a week or two prior to the big terrorist events there and said, we've misplaced $1.2 trillion. And we're not exactly sure what we've done with it, but we are looking into it.
Just a little bit.
And then mysteriously, those documents, those audited files, happen to be stored in the World Trade Center in New York City. So, stuff doesn't really add up. And I think what'll end up happening is probably 100 years from now or something along the lines. Keep in mind, we sit and we talk about Jekyll Island. You ever heard about Jekyll Island?
Yeah.
Right? So you could argue that that was actually the start of the dismantling of the United States of America. And it was almost like a convenient coincidence of what happened, turning the money system over in the United States to the banking class. And, the Rothschilds are Europeans, and they lost a lot of money through the American Revolutionary War, and then they lost a lot of money supporting Maximilian down in Mexico and the Canadians, and supporting the southern U.S. in their Civil War efforts. And Abe Lincoln sort of saved the Union. And I believe that, it's probably written into the Rothschilds' annual family speech, we must seek revenge on the United States of America. Just like they have to seek revenge on the Soviet Union, just like they had to seek revenge on Adolf Hitler. It's remarkable how these Rothschilds they carve a path through history. So, this goes so deep. It's so tinfoil hatty. And, in a lot of my broadcasts recently, I've just been saying things like, If you think you actually know what's going on in Ukraine, if you think you know what's going on now in Israel, my hunch is we in the public, we don't even know 1% of what's
As
actually going on.
a lot,
So,
a lot of stuff happens behind the scenes, but
yeah. So, I mean, the sad thing with all that is there's no point in us even commenting on all of it. What we need to do is, and this is the beautiful part about technical analysis, is that the price charts don't lie. So there is no fibbing when it comes to a price chart. What is up, and what is down. And
yep.
then if you can apply, like you had said earlier in our conversation, some just basic rules of thumb. And at TRI, we like to call this the process.
Yes, sir.
If you can learn the process, if you can learn how to manage your own behavior and your own emotional responses, and there are a lot of handy little tells that, things like risk management strategies, you can actually do very, very well in this world, but you have to be two words. Let's see if you know what the words are. First word start with a P, second word starts with a D.
Um,
So yeah, I bet you Adam already has the words in
Psychologically,
his head.
psychologically, I don't know.
No, 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 no.
Starts with a
Thank you,
P.
Adam.
Pa Patience and discipline.
Yeah. It all
That,
comes
that's
down to those two words. Drives you
some.
crazy. John. So, and actually, you want to see
It's
now,
just
you can't buy a name that looks like that right now. Right now, if anything, and the story I was trying to convey to you earlier was, of course, down here when nobody in the public was even the slightest bit interested in this name. That's when you had to be interested, right? You can see this down here. Should be
yep.
pretty obvious. And this is the kind of thing where I'm disciplined. I'm not going to chase up markets. I'm going to wait for markets to bottom out and start going sideways. And then I'm disciplined. I'm going to purchase an appropriate amount of this asset given my personal risk profile. Uh, what type of risk taker am I? Am I a little old lady? Doesn't like to take a lot of risk. Am I Joe Sixpack? Just typical guy, maybe from Oregon, just doing his thing in the market. Am I a nutso margin leverage trader? Am I a day trader, a futures trader? So there are many different risk profiles. So you're going to have to figure out who you are there. In this particular case, this is just a really simple little old lady approach to investing where I see an asset that's really cheap. I'm going to come in and just buy against the range, and I'm looking for that 38.2 bounce. Don't
Mhm.
overthink this stuff. And what's beautiful about this strategy is if you can force yourself to sell half of the position when it doubles in price, you can see if I see this asset
That's
here
pre-trade.
and it's 200 and some odd sats, then really what that is that's just a move back to that level. Is that realistic given where the 38.2 of the entire range is? I think
Yes.
so. So this, and actually we had one recent site member who was like, what's all this reference to cars and stuff? So, like back in the trading day, we used to like call these things, if you're gonna strap on a position, it's like a vehicle. You're jumping into a vehicle and you're going to go for a ride, right? Hopefully, the ride is in your benefit. Sometimes when people jump into these vehicles, it's not such a fun ride. So,
Then they're
these guys,
chasing
right? You know where they're sleeping, these guys up here, right?
on the couch because they
So,
chased.
we like to use that reference a car. I'm getting into a car, right?
Mhm.
So, ideally, what you'd love to see happen, and this is kind of like this analogy of to think of like a car carrier, where I've bought so many cars that I need a truck to carry all of my cars. So, like in the 15 to 18 bull market, there were some names when I would go in, buy a whack, sell half on a double. Then when the asset comes back down and settles back down into buying levels, what's a pretty typical buying level that Brian likes? Let's see if you can remember.
In the reload zone.
All right, that's an easy way to remember. Remember Brian's favorite fib, 78.6, right?
Yep.
So in this particular case, pretty straightforward. So boom, boom, boom. Where's our 61.8 is the start of the reload zone, but you can see from this move up here to this move up here, there is a reload zone, and there's Brian's favorite fib, 78.6.
Yes,
So
sir.
I came in here and bought a little bit to start with. That's this red line. Maybe we'll do that to there. And it was about 5 cents or so, but if you look at the USD chart, it's the same thing. As soon as the asset doubles in price, boom, out goes half. Probably a good idea in this day and age with taxes and all that to sell maybe a little bit higher than double. Leave a little bit on the sidelines for the tax man because you know he's going to want his chunk. In Canada, I don't know what the policy is in the States, but the easy rule of thumb is if you're in the highest tax bracket, it's 50% of 50%. So that means 25% haircut goes straight to substitute drama teachers who go and blow the money on stupid idiot policies. But anyway, that's democracy for you. So the point here is sell half on a double. Then when the asset settles back down and works its way back down into reload zones, well, there's no reason why you can't go buy a second car. Maybe we'll make this guy, well, why don't we make it blue so you can tell the difference. And what was interesting about this second car, and actually I picked it up at about a nickel. This we sold half on a double. So this is like, I guess the easy way to look at it is, how are we going to do this? Well, I guess we'll just type it out. So 2x. This one actually I got a little bit lazy on here. I didn't actually end up selling. I just let this thing run. But what's interesting about this is that this level technically for this guy up here is 4x of that level. So what I should do is, if I'm running the plan sort of according to the textbook, sell halves on doubles, is I sell half on a double. So let's say, for instance, here I bought 1,000 coins, right here.
Yep.
So how many coins am I going to sell at the initial double?
500.
All right, so 500 goes out, which means how many coins do I have left on the books?
500. It's a risk-free trade.
Right. So if the asset doubles again, how many coins go out here?
250.
Right. So, and that's how you're always long. You're always still long any name as it keeps going higher. Obviously, your bag is getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller over time, but you're always still in the game. And if this thing goes up 100x, well, you're still selling. In fact, the Luna story, which is a good example, I bought at $5 and I sold half on a double at 10, sold half on a double at 20, sold half at a double on about 50, 60 or so. And then I just missed a next double order at 120. And I think the thing topped out at $119 or something. So this strategy is great because you're always still long. You're always in the game. The issue here, though, is like these are number of coins. let's say hypothetically, and just keep this really simple. Let's say you put $1,000 into the name down here, and we'll use the same logic.
Yeah.
So if you sell half on a double here, how much money are you taking out of the market?
You would be taking out 1,000.
That's right. So what this really means, and same thing here, if you're going to sell half of whatever you got left at 4x now your original purchase price, how much are you taking out of the market?
That'd be, so then you double from there. 500
Nope.
or 1,000?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
what this really
that makes sense.
means is that every single time this darn thing doubles again, you're just taking, I put $1,000 in, boom, taking $1,000 out, boom, taking $1,000 out, boom, taking $1,000 out, boom, taking $1,000 out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it works great as a cash register. It just works brilliant. Now, the tricky part to this, and this is where you sort of get into that next level, I'm a real kick-ass trader and I'm going to get rich off of this, is, maybe you do this strategy. But what happens if you take this original, because like I said, we put $1,000 in here. We took $1,000 out. Actually, maybe let's leave those on there. All right, so $1,000 in.
Hmm.
Then $1,000 out. What happens if we take this original 1,000 and then we plunk it right back into the market here again?
Risk-free trade.
Well, this was the risk-free trade,
Okay. I guess
but we've
we got
taken
the
that
money.
original capital
Yeah.
now and we've put it right back in to the market. So keep in mind, this has now come back down to being worth like 500 because we sold half of this, right?
Yeah.
But now we're putting the 1,000 back in. So in essence, we've increased our investment by 50% in the idea
Yeah.
with just the original capital that we had to work with. Does that make sense?
It does.
So this is kind of like compounding your rates of return. Now, at this point here, and of course, kind of pulled one out of my butt, I said, you know what? I'm not really in a big hurry to sell half on a double now. Yeah, let's let this thing run. Let's give it. I mean, obviously, it's got a bit of. I mean, beautiful W, right? So it was great coming in and buying that level again. So that was awesome. Well, maybe let's just let this thing run a little bit. So now this one, remember, I put $1,000 into here. On this doubling event, I take my original $1,000 out again from this payday.
Yeah.
But this guy here, what's he now paying me here? I'm going to
4,000?
sell half of my position that I bought here, which remember we said was basically about 1,000 coins. So I'm going to be selling this 250 from this guy over here, but I'm also going to be selling 500, selling half,
Yeah.
on a 4x. But 4x, and I'm selling half. What does that mean this payday is?
That is 4,000.
No, remember
Or
it's
no, two,
half.
two, yeah, 2,000. I see what you mean now.
$2,000. So now at this, remember I started with $1,000 investment way over here. And at 4x, now I'm taking 3Gs out of the market.
That's absolutely crazy.
Well, and do you think this thing's done?
It
Remember,
hasn't even
look at
hit
the
the
price chart.
50%.
What
It hasn't even
happens?
hit first stop target.
Yeah, I know. And so does it not make sense? I've taken 3,000 now out of the market. What am I what am I best to do here? Well, why don't we just draw another reload zone? And if we can get back down into 78.6s, what's Brian likely to do?
Buy
Well,
some
why
more as
not go and
BFF.
strap on a third car? Does that make sense?
It does.
And this
Awesome.
is how you do crazy things like this. I mean, it was a fun demonstration, but to all intents and purposes, this is a roadmap of how you get stinking rich in this world. Because keep in mind, this was starting with like $500 investment. And I think the ultimate way, and it's funny because the boys now have it on the website, after taxes and all that shit, right? And
After you
frankly
paid
speaking,
out.
I would have rather not we just not sold anything. But, the boys wanted to wind down the Canadian company, so, we did what we did. And after taxes and all that, we had $500 investment turned into $320,000. So, that's almost like hitting the lottery.
It's little
Um,
old lady strategy.
and it's just keep it as simple as stupid. Keep it as simple as possible. Keep it
Yeah.
simple, stupid, right?
Simple stupid,
So,
baby.
hopefully, that's kind of messy, but hopefully that's a good illustration of how you do this. And just out of curiosity, like how many coins do I have left on the books now? Hopefully you can look at this and go, well, it looks like you sold 500, so that means you have
500.
500 left of this. And you had 1,000, then you went down to 500, now you're turning. So
250. So
you have basically 1,250 coins left on the books, right? Does that make
yeah,
sense?
does.
So I got 1,250 coins. What's my cost basis on those 1,250 coins?
Um, would that be like? Oh wait, just be. I don't know. Are you saying for where you bought in at?
What's my
That's
cost? I I
oh
put 1,000 in. I took 1,000 out.
oh
I
it's
put a
free.
thousand in. I just took like
Yeah,
2,000 out on
yeah.
this
So that's
guy.
your cost basis.
What's my cost basis on the
Twelve
remaining
fifty.
1,250 coins?
The 1250.
Nothing. Zero.
Okay,
There is
that's
no cost basis, right? The accountant would mark that down to zero. Which sadly, of course, means that when you do sell them, it'll be 100% capital gain, but that's another conversation. But the point here is just that there's no cost on this. And what happens if this silly thing actually has the audacity? And I don't even do anything else. I don't do anything more on
you
this.
have the free 1250 coins.
1,250 coins.
Yeah,
But remember, like I was selling 500 here for $2,000, and I was selling 250 for $1,000. So if I still have 1,250 coins and my cost basis is zero, because keep in mind, I've got $3,000 in my pocket, cash money, baby, right? I could go and hell, I don't know. They don't really have them in Oregon too much, but I could probably go down to Vegas and have some fun, right?
yeah.
Um, but that's money, and I've got these 1,250 coins just sitting there. And what's the odds in this thing doubling again? So where would that go? That would go. We'll use this Bitcoin relative one, but 800, right? So that was this was what was that? That was 200, so 400, so 800,
15.
1,600. That's another double
Yeah,
right there. Is that realistic? Well,
yeah.
that would, ironically enough,
I'd be
another
right around
double,
that.
which would, if I sold half on a double here, does that make sense? This would be another $3,000 payday up here.
Yeah,
All right. Cash. How
straight
many
cash only.
coins would I have left on the books here? Half at 1,250,
That'd
right?
be like 625.
Yeah. And is it realistic that this thing maybe in this coming bull cycle has the audacity to do something like go up and maybe make a new high, say up into there? I don't think it's unrealistic.
Yeah,
So I'd let, another, say, 300 and some odd coins. And this is just assuming that I don't actually do another reload. But I've got $3,000 cash in here. And if I get a pullback back into 78.6, does it now make sense that I could go and just add another car to the car carrier?
you could.
And that's how you get rich playing this silly little game. And the great part about it is this literally happens. You can set your watch to it about once every 4 or 5 years. The key here is that when idiots are going on Saturday Night Live touting about how wonderful they are, you have to have the patience and discipline not to get sucked into that stupidity.
Don't chase.
Is anybody going on Saturday Night Live right now talking about cryptocurrencies?
Nope. Well, probably be talking about making fun of Mr. FBS on SBF on SNL, but not to
Yeah,
pump a
he'll be
coin.
the butt of jokes, right? And I wouldn't
Yeah,
even be
exactly.
surprised if a lot of those people they actually make fun of cryptocurrencies here.
Oh, definitely. I could.
And in a weird sort of way, that's actually playing right into the 1%'s hands. That's exactly what they want. They want you as an investing public to be thinking crypto sucks. Crypto, you're never going to make any money on crypto. You know, if we look at the Bitcoin chart, right? Bitcoin right now is kind of getting its lunch handed to it, right?
There were what 26,800.
Yeah, so we had our little roadmap here, so we know exactly what to expect. And frankly speaking, I don't think this is going to be a fun ride at all.
I'm
But
curious to see how this goes with the roadmap. Like, I
yeah,
like that it's still overlaid on there
yeah,
to
now we
see
can.
how.
Isn't that cool how we can just watch this? So now we can go, you are here now.
Yeah.
Right? So we did have a bit of a bounce, which kind of was what the fractal suggested. And then we're in this phase right now. Uh-oh. I wouldn't be surprised in through right now we're in what's called eclipse season.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, eclipses are really, and I can feel it in myself. I have to actually step back sometimes and remind myself that, and I don't mean to sound like a jerk, but I'm actually a pretty wealthy guy.
I
But
mean,
right
when you're
now,
selling half on the double, it's
well,
the
I mean,
bread and
aside
butter.
from trading. And the great part about it is I've got this skill, so we can just keep doing this over and over and over for the rest of my life, right? All you
Yes,
got to
sir.
do is just don't do anything while the market works its way back down. And then, like the loom, as soon as it starts showing signs of bottoming, just get in there and buy and sell halves on doubles and do the whole damn thing all over again. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that right now I am so stressed. It's driving me crazy. I'm just over the top stressed out right now. And really, on balance, I don't have a lot to be stressed out about. If anything, I'm extremely fortunate. But oh man, I don't know if you feel stressed out in your life,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel just stunningly stressed out right now. And I think it's everything to do with these eclipses, because right around these eclipses, that's usually when the market really the market tanks and the humans freak out because we're all really stressed out and we let our emotions take over. So anyway, so there was a little conversation about Loom. We probably ought to give a shout out because John's over there, and
Yeah.
I actually say that I think, and I don't know what it's going to look like here on these charts. Let's see if I can do this. Can I do? See, yeah, I don't even US. Whoops, DT. I don't know whether we can get Frax on here,
I think
John.
we've got it. Yeah, I was gonna say
Oh, there it is. Oh, cool. Okay.
I remember putting in Frax on the uploading that logo. All those logos that are on there, I've prop
You actually,
put
I
myself
sure
in
hope you're buying some of this down here.
every bio. I put the logo in and all the information on those. Those are by hand.
So, remember our conversation about Loom, right?
Yes, sir.
So, does this not kind of look like that Loom when it was sort of down at the bottom end of its range, bumping around there?
Yeah.
Is the public even the slightest bit interested in something like this right now? And I can tell you right now, absolutely not.
No.
Not even the slightest bit interested. Now, hopefully, what you see is, gee whiz, this looks awful like that Beamish guy's talking about, and all his W's and all that kind of craziness, right? So hopefully, what you see here is, if we zoom in, good old TRI, we just do what we
Yeah.
do.
Wait, do you want to try clicking on Poloniex? I'm curious to see if we get a little more data. there. Oh, nope. You got
Well,
one
we do, but it looks like
that's
you've got one
gross.
of these
Maybe
crazy
okay.
ass wicks. And actually, there was a way. I remember when I was working with Will in the past, there was a way to actually get rid of these individual candles. So you could actually see the price chart clearly. Whoops.
Bet that's something that
But hey, that's got to be a harbinger, eh? So this thing traded on Poloniex all the way up to $1,700, and it's now sitting at $5. Interesting. And actually, I remember in this, it wasn't this cycle, 2017, 2018. Do you remember there was a whole section of marijuana coins? Do you remember that?
yes, I do.
And there was one coin called
Cannabis
CANN,
coin, I think.
CANN. And one of our site members, he bought a whole bunch at the bottom. And at that time, you could work indefinite sell half on double orders. And he
Uh-huh.
had like literally 13 sell half on a double orders working on, God, I can't even remember what exchange it was now. And this coin, and the marijuana coins, they were notorious for going crazy. And literally every time the damn asset, like he had like literally 13 orders, and the coin came out, it was like reorganized or something like that. And he literally got 13 doubles on one coin and like just like that.
Your phone just goes ding, 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 ding,
Which
ding.
is just awesome, right? So I mean, it does happen, but they've kind of curtailed your ability to work a whole bunch of open orders now, which really sucks.
Yeah.
But that was the
But
one. That was what I mean. That was another reason why we were able to do this kind of stuff, was because you were able to work just tons of sell have on doubles orders, and just when the market moved, I mean, it was just laughable how big the moves were. I mean, just even looking at that though, that gives you a little bit more context, right?
I was,
So
yeah, I
you
was gonna
can
say
see
for
the original
explanation
bottom
purpose.
here. Sorry.
I was gonna say for explanation purposes, I think Binance did have pretty much the same data, but not those two big
Yeah, yeah, it
wicks.
could
If you
be.
want to look on there, but
And then also remember too that these kind of wicks and tails, you see how there's repeated and like this and this and this and all that kind of stuff. That's actually a sign of a very illiquid market. Um, it's also a sign too, though, that price really ought to revisit those levels. So kind of you see this huge wick right here. What a surprise! We got huge wicks right here because some idiot fat fingered and bought all the way up to here. And so they wanted to get off the couch, right? So you have another sort of fat finger idiot that comes in and buy, and they're just literally buying the coins that this guy wants to sell desperately. So this is probably a harbinger that this thing's heading back up to this $20 area. I mean, that's the irony of it all. No guarantees from the management. You all know that. But an old gnarly technician. Also, too, though, notice, look at this big tail down here, right? And notice this big tail down here.
Mhm.
So, say it works in the other direction as well. So, just understand that. But anyway, I digress. The point here is last year, of course, you see this bottom here, right? So we went in and bought, and that's at what, $6?
Yeah,
Of
about
course, we were able to sell halves on doubles up into these rallies. Well, I'm not on Poloniex. I can't remember what exchange I did this on. But once this rally has happened, what do you think Brian's likely to do once he's sold half on a double there?
sorry. I was trying to look back at last week's checks. I knew there was one, or last show's chat. There was one that someone requested that I said we would get to, and I'm pretty sure it was Big House. Was that Big House? Was that the Matic from the last show that we said we would get back to? I meant to check that. I saw your comments. I was trying to look through the comments of the last show. Let me know in the chat if it was that one. Sorry, Brian. Just
He
wanted
says
to make.
yes. So anyway, the point here is at 78.6. What the hell do you think Brian's doing over here?
Reload zone.
Yeah, reloading,
Yep,
right? So this will
reloading.
be the first car, and we already got a double off on that. And this will be, maybe we'll make this yellow. This will be the second car. So just like I showed you with that loom, you got to force yourself to sell when these things do double. Pay yourself. Then when they work their way back down into reload zones, go and buy your second cars. And when this thing pops, and considering the fact that all these wicks up top here exist, and we bought the next one at 5 and change. Ironically enough, double is really just what, $11, somewhere in there. Is
Yep,
that realistic?
very
Should
much
I
so.
maybe hold out for a 4x on this one, like I did with the loom? And I'll sell half of this first purchase again at the 4x, but I'll sell half of this purchase. And remember, I've only got half of this first car left, but I'll sell half of this second purchase at 4x. So there you go. Hold out for, yeah, well, and that's the irony of it all is, and I have this lecture on the Coinigy site with chaos theory. I mean, I think you could make an argument that if this bigger wide W comes in, and this is kind of the same conversation as that loom, is that we can actually start thinking about things like fog and bombs. And interestingly enough, Mr. Foggenbaum's sort of gift to the world, this
Four
Foggenbaum
point.
constant,
Yep.
4.669. You can see where it is. So maybe
Yep.
what I should do is just leave everything alone. And if this big honking W comes in, which, it hasn't yet, but if it does come in, kind of like, it's interesting how that loom, it looks like it is starting to confirm bigger W's there. Actually, we should probably do this on recent. Yeah, there it is. Where did I have that? Was it Binance? Oh, not Binance US. Yeah, there. Actually, this is a good example. You can see here. Let's see where the Foggenbaum constant is here. So, does it make
Oh, yeah.
sense why we kind of went kind of funny in that level there?
Yeah, and then you got the chaos theory right there.
Well, the question is, where's 4.669?
Yeah, way
Let's
up.
see. Well, there it is, up at 24 cents. That's pretty close. In fact, actually, that's probably pretty darn
We were
close
looking at the
to.
BTC, Loom
Oh
slash
yeah, that's right.
BTC.
Actually,
It's right
yeah.
there on Poloniex.
Oh yeah, there's this one, right?
Yep.
So what I was wondering is, yeah, so that's interesting. Let's just for fun, darn, I got all this crap on here, but see if you can see through it. Oh, and this is versus Bitcoin. That's why.
Yeah.
So interesting how Bitcoin versus Bitcoin we ran up into that 4669, which is interesting because we've resolved bullishly through 4669. So you tell me what's the next objective for us?
8.776.
Yeah, well, 877, maybe 8776 if you
Ah,
feel like it. That's fine. I'd give you full marks if you said 8776. Where are we here? There's 877. So let's see where this is. This is versus Bitcoin, right? So yeah, interesting also too. Remember our conversations about 38.2s?
oh yeah.
So what probably happens is we bump up into this level and we start running into traffic because these doofuses here, they're all going to be screaming for release up in here, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, with regard to John's coin, and it might be interesting to look at it versus Bitcoin, see if that same math is there. But I might argue that if this YW forms, which probably it will, I think
Hmm.
John's got a pretty good nose for this. And actually, this is a really good example of rational analysis. Why? Have I made the case technically for why this is appealing?
Yes.
I mean, the most important, and how many reasons should we have to justify risking our hard-earned money?
3.
And what's the absolute most important reason? Number one should always be number
Location.
one. Yeah. So, I mean, you just tell me, just looking at this price chart, is this remember, we as smart money, we want to make money from this game. We're not just in this just for shits and giggles. So, are we in an acceptable trade location
Yes.
to be investing our hard-earned money? I think so.
Yes.
So, my hunch is probably if we looked at things like momentum indicators, they probably are starting to W out. Yeah. So, can you see how the MACD indicator is? You can see it actually was Wing out a while ago, eh?
Was.
And we're making higher lows, higher low, higher low, higher low. So this thing's just working its way up. Yeah, we might stall out here a bit. I'm not necessarily saying that this thing's about to rocket, but there is signs of bullish divergence here. Willie is officially stupidly oversold. When this blue number here is below -80, to me, that means the market is oversold. You can even see a potential bull div there on RSI indicator. It's making higher lows. And you can see somebody's coming in here and doing a bit of buying here, right? Look at that big spike up there. So somebody's buying this thing. So technically speaking, I think you can make a lot of cases for why this looks attractive. And now, and this is a great testament to like what we call rational analysis, is the coin and the company is actually doing things. John, you got a link to some of the fundamental news that they're coming out. Maybe you can throw that in the chat room there. But if I understand correctly, they are actually doing stuff, right? They are building fundamental value. So I would argue that this is probably a pretty good rational investment idea. It's fundamentally, it's got positive things going from it. Technically, any technician should look at this and say, yeah, well, the odds of seeing a pump back up into these wicks, hell, you could even probably just do a simple, what did we say was the keep it simple, stupid indicator level that all technicians should use just as a rule of thumb?
50%.
Right? So good old WD Gann and his 50% rule. So the odds are probably pretty good. We get up into that $11 area. And do you see how it's sitting right now at $5? That sounds to me like a double to me.
It does.
Right? It's not necessarily saying that this thing's going to new highs. What it is saying is if you do go in and buy this and just sell it at a technically appropriate level, odds are you could probably establish a risk-free trade. Mm-hmm. Sell half on a double. Obviously, maybe you want to sell a little bit more than half, or maybe you want to sell a little bit higher than a double. That's up to you. I mean, maybe you work your order in these wicks. Who knows? Leave a little bit of money on the side for the tax man because they want their chunk. And this is the way the capitalist game is played by the professionals. It's remarkable how consistent it is.
It is.
And the good part about it is we just went through the shit. We just went through like 2 years of basically doing nothing. Just waiting, being patient, being disciplined. And we're now back into a window where we can actually seriously consider investing some serious money. So,
beautiful.
And how ironic, if you open up the news headlines, right, on our site, we've got like a news feed. I like to sort of just keep an eye on what's happening in the world. And if anything, use this as a contrarian investment. And you just see, especially out of things like the Wall Street Journal, I think the Wall Street Journal, they have a personal hatred for crypto. So what's the number one headline? Caroline Ellison tells jury she dreaded inevitable collapse of FTX, right? So, they are going to make this look as ugly and as evil and as nasty as possible. Because sadly, actually what Wall Street wants to do is they want you to encourage you to what?
Panic. Be aware.
They don't give a shit whether you panic or not. Because frankly speaking, that doesn't put food in their mouths. What put food in their mouths.
You clicking on that? And
Well, I mean, to a certain degree, yeah, you're right. Clickbait, drive advertising revenue.
I want you to
But they
sell.
want to remember how this game works, right? The
Yeah,
smart money, do
institutions
they
want to buy.
buy up markets? Does the 1% buy these up market moves?
Nope.
No, they
Buy the
buy
down market.
down markets. But how
Yep,
are they going to buy if there's nothing for sale?
exactly.
So they've got to encourage
They got
you
to get
to
you to buy it
sell.
or to sell yours so they can buy it.
That's right. And that's the way this game works. It's evil as fuck. And
It
half of my job and whatever days that I have left remaining on this planet is to try and just get this message out to the public. It's not taught in schools.
at
Somebody's
all.
got to teach the public this shit.
And it's you.
I hope so. It would be great if that's my legacy. Because I'll tell you, I haven't done a hell of fucking else. I lost the love of my life. Let her slip through my fingers. I have a special needs son. I can't do anything for him. So maybe I can help with the remaining time I have on this planet. Maybe I can help humanity somehow. I don't know.
You're making a positive difference in the world.
Sure hope so.
Yes, sir.
All right,
Um,
so we looked at FXS, and frankly speaking, I would highly encourage all of you to take a really good look at this name. As I said there before, no guarantees from the management. And the interesting thing is you can go coin by coin by coin by coin, and they all look like this. They're all getting ready to make you rich, but you just have to be insanely patient. So,
the way it goes.
somebody asked us, Mr. Big House asked us,
Yeah,
look at
Matic.
Matic.
So we had Matic, and then another one I'd like to get to. We got about 40 minutes or so left, but ZRX was also one that was requested. But let's hit up Matic first from Big House.
All
Thank you
right.
for
Where should we look at this thing? Probably looks the same
go to
everywhere.
US. Here I'm check Matic.
Probably, do we want to look at it
Matic to
versus a
USD.
currency?
I'd say um,
Maybe on
Binance
Coinbase
or
is pretty
Coinbase.
popular in the
Yeah.
States.
Yeah, let's
Coinbase
do
Pro
Coinbase. Coinbase Pro, do that one. I mean, it's
probably won't
technically
have that much
Coinbase, but
history. I
that
mean,
one
what you
has.
really want is you want to see it back from inception.
So try regular Coinbase, but
Coinbase Prime.
no. So above, so
Oh, there you
Coinbase,
go.
they've
Binance.
changed.
Binance
Yeah.
probably. Mind you, interesting how Binance doesn't have a regular one. Where's the regular one?
Um, I don't know.
Kraken. Kraken's been around forever.
Yeah.
Release the Kraken. Oh, no, it hasn't.
Thank you.
KuCoin. KuCoin's been around quite a while. There you go. There's a bit more data.
Yeah. It's funny how many times we've got like three different Coinbase things on there that we're kind of in the process of shifting it back into one because they had Coinbase, it was GDAX, and then there's Coinbase, then there's Coinbase Pro, then they added Coinbase Prime, and then now I think it's just like Coinbase Advanced. Coinbase Advanced. They've changed their business model so many times like that. It's hard to keep track of.
Yeah, well, I suppose if they keep dancing with guys like Gensler, right, they have to
Yeah.
sort of, and CZ's the same thing. Watching him play with all the regulators, it's almost funny.
Coinbase One. Yeah, maybe that's it.
So here is and I'm looking at this on Huobi, although I don't know if Huobi's going to make it. But Huobi used to be known as like if you wanted to shill scam, you did this shill scam on Huobi.
On Hobie.
But anyway.
Yeah, it's funny. Don't let any trades coming from like a US IP.
No, not anymore.
They're very
because they're
much so.
Chinese, right? So.
Yeah, I've worked with them.
So sad is that pretty much the Chinese are at war now with the West. I mean, the only thing that's missing is the actual bullets flying.
Yeah,
it's remarkable how the whole thing. It just is all just a big fucking scam. Jesus, just makes you feel so sad for this species. But anyway. So at least here we've got some data going back into 221. I mean, Matic, I don't know when it started, but it's probably important. And you know what also might be a good thing to do here is look at this on a logarithmic scale. So unfortunately, when you look at this from a logarithmic scale, you can see that really, if we lose these lows in here, it's a long, long way down to the bottom. And this, unfortunately, is what I think a lot of people are kind of neglecting. Remember that FXS and the Lumen stuff? The charts kind of look like that, right? Kind of like a long saucer bottom. And if we
Line
pull that
rider.
back up again, okay, just to show you, and I'll change this from back to regular. Um,
A nice little ramp.
yeah, well, I mean, but the point is, right, is that this is a base, and this is kind of what you need. Whoops, oh, darn. This is what you kind of need to actually sort of set the floor for big bull runs. Is, kind of notice that, we come down, and this is like, what is that? That's September 22. So that's basically a year
Yeah.
where this kind of looks like a big. Have you ever heard me use the term saucer bottom?
Yes, sir.
So that's kind of what you want to see. And then, the same thing with that loom. Um, this had this nice saucer bottom and then really beautiful little W right in here against these lows. So if we, and keep this image in mind, right?
Okay.
So if we go back to that Matic, actually it should be on here, shouldn't it? Yeah, there it is. So if we go back to that Matic, and Huobi
Bitcoin, I
was the one
think.
that had lots of data.
Yeah.
So can you see that maybe kind of like that name that we were just looking at there, the loom?
Yeah.
Maybe we come down here, test these lows and W, and really this is probably what you want to see. Notice this cute little W down in here.
Yep.
And then it launched, right? My hunch is you could come in and take a stab on the Matic against these lows. But if you're kind of like, and let's assume that maybe this is brand new money, you don't have money working in it. And this is why it's really beneficial to have as much data as possible. There is the low. So what we really want to see is, can we get some sort of like saucer bottom, down, up, down, breakout kind of thing. This is a 3-day chart. Of course, weekly I like to use the moving averages to try and tell me what trend is. So can you see how maybe this is a W that's trying to form here, but has it actually formed just yet? It tried to here recently. I don't know if we zoom in on this. Down, up, down, breakout. Oh, okay. That's interesting. They have brought it right back down against its lows.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would say is, if you're going to take a shot on this, I guess the way I would look at this is, first off, you got to figure out what type of risk taker you are. So if you fancy yourself, I don't like the fact that we actually went through that low. That's not good. So we've broken through there. We are coming back down into these lows. Remember we talked about wicks and tails like to be eaten.
Of course.
Candle body lows for trade locations. So believe it or not, actually, I like that as a level, and I like that as a level right down in there. So where's that? Yeah. So actually, this makes sense why we sort of turned off of this level here.
Yeah. Touched and went up.
So, I mean, it's an interesting trade location. So now the question ultimately is, do we have any evidence that this has actually turned back up? This is looking at 3-day. If we use that moving average system, it's still pointing down. Even with this little W, it didn't change the moving averages at all. We go down to the daily chart. Yeah, so you can see it tried to turn up. Then
Didn't.
something happened here, right? Where unfortunately it looks like, somebody, Joey Diamond, who knows, somebody just smiled at us nastily, and this thing started to break down. You should also, if you fancy yourself a trader and you're trying to learn, you should interpret candlesticks. I mean, I think I've talked to you about this before. What is this kind of candlestick there? What's that?
That is a shooting star.
Very good. Good job. You could also make the argument with the size of this wick here as well. That's kind of a bearish candle as well. Pretty big wick. So, and of course, you know where these guys are sleeping, right?
On the couch.
Right. So, if we did get any kind of counter trend rally back up into these levels, there's going to be a ton of sellers up in there. So we've done some technical damage here. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This was 1, 2, 3, 4 days ago. And what's that? That's, I guess, through the holiday weekend.
Mm-hmm.
There's some serious technical damage was done here. Now, was it on accelerating volume? Because this is on Huobi, obviously the data is a little bit suspect. Maybe we can look at it. Let's look at it on KuCoin. Yeah, OBV, you can see this sort of money flow. It was, hey, I'm a bull, and then something's happened here. The bulls, the green bars, they kind of disappeared, and it's just been all selling here. So I wonder, Mr. Big House, was there some sort of fundamental event? Was there some sort of news or something that hit? I mean, you can clearly see the double top breakdown here, right? Up, down, really hard low there, back up, and then failure.
Oh, their co-founder left the company this week, if I recall correctly.
Okay, so I think you just found your smoking gun.
Yeah, it was. Hey, that's why you should have the Coinigy newsletter.
There you
That was
go. Damn
featured
it.
on our Coinigy newsletter this week.
All right. So the point being that the market heard that, maybe even caught wind of it beforehand. And the double top breakdown was the market, especially because can you see how there was this low? And then what do we call these two candles right here that almost look identical? This one here and that
Railroad
one
tracks.
Yeah, very good. So the fact that the market lost that railroad tracks low, that's not a good sign. Not a good sign at all. So, we talked about fog and bombs to the upside. There's no reason why we can't talk fog and bombs to the downside.
Mm-hmm.
So if we just draw that, what would this chaos theory suggest would be a natural support level next, since we M'd out here. And we're, oh boy, 2.618 is all the way down there, right?
Yeah.
Which kind of makes sense because remember we were looking at this over on Huobi, and maybe that's probably a better place for us to look at this. Where was that?
There's still some down there on this data on that left side of the chart.
Oh yeah, there is. Oh yeah, I didn't see that. It took a little bit of time to load, didn't it? Oh no, yeah, was it KuCoin? Yeah. So where does 2.618 come in? Interestingly enough, it's going to be kind of hard to see this, so hang in there. Just off of this failure here, 2.618 is going to be right there. And then 4669 is going to be right in there. So we zoom in on these levels, and in a weird sort of way,
all those railroad tracks.
Yeah, excellent that you see that. I mean, what letter of the alphabet does this kind of look like? Down, up, down, breakout.
A W kind of, but
yeah. Well, so if we change that to a line chart, there's the W.
Oh, that is the
So does it make sense that if price does come down into this level, somebody stepped up and defended this name before off of these levels? That's the chaos level right there.
Yeah.
Are they likely to maybe come in and defend it again off of these levels? I think
Yes,
so.
sir.
So, selling, selling, selling. Oh, the founder of the company's leaving. Oh, Jesus. Oh, get out, get out, get out, get out, right? And, the price will fall until we actually get back into a place where previously buyers stepped up, and there might even be some buy orders on the order book still sitting there. In fact, you guys have the order book here, don't you?
Yep. So you click
So at any
in time
given
and
point in
sales.
time, huh?
If you click on the time and sales tab, right
Uh,
next to, so where it says right under the high and low on the right hand column, where you
right
just
hand
click down,
column, high, low, that
down
right
a
there.
little bit. Oh, so actually here, I
Time
think
and sales.
yeah, there you
Hey,
go.
there you go. Perfect. So, actually, with this is a topic we teach in the level 3 program, a little bit more advanced. But you can actually use the order book to try and figure out where value is on these names. The only problem is I don't think your order book goes low enough.
So if you click on here, let me see if I think I can draw on. I don't know if you can see, but up. I don't know if this is showing on yours as well, but if you look on the zoom,
Zoom, where are you? Zoom, there you are, over there.
maybe not, but
No, because I'd have to stop
yeah.
sharing and
All
then
right. So yeah,
reshare.
if you look on the chart itself, where it says candlestick chart right at the top of the chart, there's depth chart and time and sales. I
Oh,
wonder
there you
if
go.
that one might have a little more.
No, you only
No.
go down to 5,000. Well,
Yeah.
maybe what happens if we scroll? No.
No.
So anyway, it'd be interesting to see like way down the order book
Yeah.
to see if there are any notches in the profile to give you an idea where you might actually see buying support come in. But um, it looks like you just aggregate all the orders below this level. There
Yeah.
must be some sort of function that you sort of have picked X amount of numbers to display here.
I'd imagine. I can't count off the top of my head.
Yeah. So it's the
Um,
same sort of thing, but just a different visualization. So other sites, you can scroll up and down the entire order book. But anyway, we won't get into that today. All right. So just the point being that I don't like how this chart does not look like a saucer bottom yet. I mean, when we look at like a line chart, you had a nice little attempted W there. Interesting how this W, though, this low here looks like a lower low, eh? So that's 50.37, and this is 50.36. Wow, so close. So they tried to W it out, and then, like you said, the news that one of the founders or principal in the name left, that killed whatever the bullish enthusiasm is. So that's probably what I see going on here. Now, this is actually a really handy tool. All you technicians can add this into your tool belt. There are a number of different ways you can draw trend lines. One trend line that almost nobody in the public ever draws is pivot high to pivot low trend lines. They work really, really well.
pivot.
So that means we could go off of this as a pivot high and that as a pivot low. And that actually is a very powerful trend line going forward. So can you see how we went up, down? You could maybe do it off of here, but this was the high of the move. So I would use that as the pivot low.
Okay.
And that trend line itself, I think, will be incredibly relevant going forward. So I guess the way that I would look at this is, as I said there a few minutes ago, unlike the FXS and unlike the Loom, what I'd really like to see with these things is they make kind of like a big, wide saucer bottom. And we have like lots of anecdotal evidence, and it starts looking like this. And Beamish is in. I might go in and nibble and take a shot off of that W. It's at an interesting location. And you do have price structure. And my hunch is on this move down here, you did have a bit of divergence. Yeah, there's a bit of a W in there.
Yeah, I can
It's
see
not
it.
great, but you can also see Willie was stupidly oversold. So I don't fault you for coming in and being interested in a name like this. This would probably, to me, is a good anecdote of we are 6 months ahead of the halvening event. So
It's
you're,
exciting.
what did I say?
I said it's exciting.
Yeah. Um, so the point being that they've washed this market out. It's washed out. The question ultimately here, and of course you don't like to hear that principles of the name have decided to move on in life. That's usually not a good sign. But, the ultimate sort of tell that this thing actually has turned is what we'd really like to see is like on a weekly chart, do we have weekly W's working? And I think this thing's maybe a little bit early. So can you see on like have you ever heard me talk about weekly W's before? I
Yes,
don't know.
sir.
Okay, good. So you can kind of see on a weekly basis, if we can hold these lows, and hold the line,
Sure.
then, and this thing can turn back up, then I think actually you got a really good idea. Because if we do just good old reload zones on a weekly basis, this to me looks like it's in a buying window. The problem here is that that's about all we have right now off the higher time frames. Is we've got trade location, so there is a reload zone, but that's about as far as the conversation can go. And actually, a really good analogy. This is one reason why I like using the 13 EMA. Notice how we ran into this level and were rejected. What's this little bar called right there?
Um, the Doji?
Good. Very good, Joe. So, unfortunately, doji, it can either mean reversal or it can mean midpoint.
Okay.
So, if we had resolved up through the top of the doji, then this probably would have been a midpoint move, painting for a move up into here. But because the market failed through here, what's this two bar pattern called? This bar and that bar together. And interestingly
Inside
enough, from
an inside
Japanese,
bar?
pardon me?
Is it the oh the is that the it starts with an H,
Well,
right?
you were heading in the right direction there.
Okay, so inside bar,
It
like
is
it's like the
because the doji
harami.
is entirely inside this pot candle, right?
Yeah.
Um, the head is outside of Mummy's body. So I would call this a bastardized harami. That's
Okay.
the word that you're looking for.
Yeah.
The Japanese themselves, though, they would actually be okay with calling this harami because baby's body is entirely inside mummy's body.
Mm-hmm.
And that's technically what the definition of harami, like the translation is pregnant woman with child in body.
Gotcha.
Harami. So anyway, the fact that we went through the low here, inside bar failure, harami, that's actually very bearish.
And you said obviously it's a very powerful reversal signal, but you said it can be a reversal or a middle.
Right. Well, think of
I
it
was
this
trying to make
way.
note of what you said.
If we had gone, like, you could have drawn a line from there to there, right?
Uh-huh.
And let's go. And then done a harmonic A to B, C to D. It might have looked something like that. If this harami had actually turned into a bullish signal, you might have seen something along those lines.
Okay.
Where that's like the consolidation of this big bull run, consolidated. And if I'm going to trade this, what's the trading setup? Do you remember the name of the setup that I use?
You're gonna trade that.
Right, if we change this to a daily chart, you'll probably see it a little bit better. That's the good part about technical analysis, Ken, is that the universe is a fractal. So
Okay.
that means
Yep.
by definition, you can zoom in and out of time and all of the concepts all stay exactly the same. So you ever heard me talk about my bot setup?
Yes.
So I use that for sort of trend continuation. So what I would say is we want to see at least 33%. Whoops, where's 33 on here? Yeah, it's on here. There we are. No more than 66%. So you see how we ran up, we came back to 33, and then we consolidated. So this is that Harami bar off of the weekly charts. You with
Yep,
me?
that makes sense.
And the bot setup says that I will get bullish if I see one low, two lows,
Oh, yes, yes,
three
yes.
lows, and then a breakout higher. And all I'll do is I'll take this original range and I'll break it into quarters, and then that will frame my trade.
Yes.
So if I go like so, and then I go like so, and then I go like so. So, whoop, where's 66? It's on here somewhere. There we go.
Awesome.
Flip it around. There we go. So you can see 1, 2, 3. Actually, there's the bot entry level way up there. And you can see how they rallied it once. Then they came down and puked out and lost the lows. So at this point, if I still wanted to follow the bot, I would just keep moving this down,
Okay.
looking for those 3 higher lows. If we break 66%, so you can see this was sort of the absolute last opportunity for that to happen. There's one low, and we puked out again. As of this point, when we go beyond 66%, the bot's gone.
Gotcha. Because
But
it's start by measuring at 33%, but then no more than 66%.
yeah, and ideally, really what you want to look for is symmetry. Have you ever heard that term before?
Yes.
So a perfectly symmetrical move would be 50% of this range. So 33 to 66 is just sort of, do you see how that's sort of creating like a box within that sort of midpoint of that move, right?
Mhm.
And if you look at like, all these drawing tools, they have like the AB equals CD pattern. And really what we're really asking is, how symmetrical is this move? And I think the universe on balance wants to be as symmetrical as possible. It wants to look like us humans, we love symmetry in life. We love things to look balanced. Like a square looks like a square because it's perfectly symmetrical. So this ABCD, right, that's this ABCD pattern. The absolute perfect symmetrical drawing would be A to B, and then C is that 50% retracement, and then D takes you up here. So do you see how
Way
that's
up there.
very symmetrical?
Yes.
Right, and if I just take this tool, and we have 33, but I'll throw on 50%, right? That would be the absolute perfect midpoint. Well, that's pretty close there, right? And that's like a perfectly symmetrical move. So that's why I use the 33 to 66, is I want that consolidation to be somewhere in here. So what's really happened here, and this is again going back to that weekly chart, is the market could have been making this AB equals CD, but by just the simple fact that we made lower highs and lower lows, it was like, no, I'm not doing this.
Gotcha.
So I don't want, and again, if we want to use that weekly chart, the doji candle in itself is that consolidation.
Okay.
And this could have resolved up, and had it been 3 higher lows, then I would have been botting and trading away. But it didn't. And in fact, we actually even went down and busted this low. So that means all of the talk about bottom here, that's all gone now. So what I was originally getting to with this was, notice how 13 EMA actually acted as a bit of a brick wall here. And lo and behold, look at what the 13 EMA just did again. So this market is a very strongly downtrending market as long as we keep rallying into the 13 EMA and just keep getting rejected. I'd also say too, let's see if you remember this. What does
Okay.
this 3-bar pattern look like?
A V, is it the V bottom? I guess was that,
How
oh,
about
Empire State Building. Okay, I can see that.
there's your Empire State Building?
I can see it.
Have you ever heard me
I
use the
don't think so.
expression, this looks like an empire?
No, that one's new,
All right,
but I
well,
can
there you
see
go.
it.
So, I mean, this is kind of a funny anecdote. Japanese candlesticks obviously started in Japan. Um, very, very secretive, and they don't like the West at all. The only reason why they opened up at all was because the West won the Second World War. So there was a gentleman who actually was the first Westerner to explore Japanese candlesticks. A gentleman by the name of Neeson brought this
Okay.
concept back to North America, and of course the Americans they just fought and died, killing Japanese. So wrapping their arms around a whole bunch of Japanese concepts, especially in like capitalism and trading and stuff. Um, Not overly excited about that. So the Americans, they actually sort of started to create a whole bunch of American terms for these kind of formations and stuff. So this is actually a very popular term
Gotcha.
with American Japanese candlestick traders.
Cool. Just
You're never
put in
going
my
to hear
notes.
the empire reference out of in Japan. That just won't
Yeah.
happen.
Well, help me remember it. So yeah, I made note.
But it is
It,
a 3-bar reversal, and what do we call this 3-bar pattern in I've talked to you about this before. In fact, it's even
okay.
on the screen right now. What do we call that 3-bar pattern?
The 3-bar pattern, the doji
Well, there is a doji in the middle of there, but this 3-bar pattern is called a fractal.
fractal. Yes,
And
that's
if
not.
we
I
get a
keep forgetting
trade
that
below
about
this
fractals.
low, then it actually triggers a fractal sell signal. Right? You've heard me, and you could argue that the empire is an example of that of a fractal, but you probably heard me talk about the Canadian
The
flag.
Canadian flag with the maple leaves.
Yeah, now you see all these 3 little pointy points, right? This is
Yeah.
just the way Mother Nature works. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So if you see it on a price chart, you probably ought to pay attention. That's probably some sort of change event. So I guess just the point being that if we do finish out this week here, and then on, say, Monday, we trade through that low, then what it really means is, remember we said on the daily chart there was a bottom that was trying to form here? If this 3-bar fractal forms on the weekly charts, then it means that this double bottom on the daily charts has been given, and see you later.
Gotcha.
And there is that YW. And for those people that are trading these assets, I think unfortunately in this world, a lot of people they sort of go, okay, if I'm going to trade, that means that I'm going to buy and it's going to be the exact bottom, and I'm only going to buy if this is exactly the low, and that means that I don't have to worry about selling. But just out of curiosity, and I wonder if you even know this, you probably should write this down.
All right.
By definition, every single trade setup that I go into, what is the statistical probability that I expect that I'm going to be wrong and I'm going to be stopped out?
So you have to, so you have to trade with an algorithmic approach. So
The
you
answer to
you
that
need
question is in that statement. You remember, so What's that speaking about? That sounds like somebody's rules of investing or something like that.
Yes.
What's that called?
So
Brian's two rules of investing?
yeah, so it said
Right?
you have to be 2 to 1, so 33% of being correct.
No,
So,
whoa, 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 whoa. Slow down. Rule number one is what?
oh, sorry, that's rules to make a trade, and which is I've got rules
You're
to make
right. You know,
a
you need to, and I'll just tell you the rules. Rule
yeah,
number one is you must use an algorithmic approach,
yes,
and that algorithmic approach should
it
be 60 to 70% accurate.
gotcha. Make sure you're the average winner.
And what I would ideally love to see is 66%. If we can get
Yep,
into that area, then we're kicking ass. So
I
my
literally
question
have.
for
If
you
you
is
can be correct 66% of the time, you're killing it.
exactly, especially if you have like 2 to 1 risk reward, you're making tons and tons of money.
Yeah. And then number two is the little old lady.
Well, no, 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 no.
No, no.
Rule number two says that you cannot risk more than 5% of the stake or the amount of money that you have to work with on any one idea. Little old lady approach is I'm going to take 5% of my stake and I'm going to buy it and I'm not going to buy any more. And then that
Gotcha.
way, if the market goes down to zero, well, I've lost 5% of my portfolio. Big fucking deal.
Yeah.
But, you could be a Joe Sixpack. Joe Sixpack will say, I'll risk 50% of my investment. So if I risk 50% of my investment, and it's that number is 5% of my stake or my portfolio, what I have to work with, then by definition, how much am I investing in the idea?
Only 5% of it. Or wait,
No, because
oh,
50% of 5% is what?
50% of is 2.5,
And I said I was going to risk 5% of my portfolio.
5%. Okay, so then it'd be 10.
Right. So I could put, if
Yeah.
I'm Joe Sixpack and
Uh-huh.
I'm going to risk fit to 50% of whatever I invested, then I can put 10% of my portfolio into a
Yeah,
name.
that makes
Right.
sense then.
If I'm a margin trader, that 5% rule is still the same. And in fact, for margin traders, day traders, that 5% number is actually a bit big. That gives a lot of people a lot of anxiety. So I
Okay.
even suggest knock that in half. Maybe go like 2%, 2 to 3%. Some people, they want to knock that number in half as well.
5 is huge.
Right. Well, if you're going to trade, 5% is a big number.
Yeah.
So, one guy that I used to do these videos with, he just has a rule of thumb that if I'm futures trading, leverage trading, I risk 1% of my portfolio, which I think is perfectly valid. There's nothing wrong with that idea at all. So the point is that Brian's two rules of investing, you're never, ever, ever, ever allowed to break that 5% rule. Ever. Never, never break it. So in this
Gotcha.
particular case, you notice if you bought this W, that's 54 cents, right? You with me?
Yep.
And if I had to risk to the bottom of this W, then what that means is I'm risking to 49 cents.
Okay.
So on a percentage basis, how much is this that I'm risking? Right? And you can do that right there.
And
It's actually about 11 to 12%.
okay.
Do you see that?
Yep.
So if I took the little old lady approach and I just bought this, well, so what? If it goes to zero, it goes to zero. I didn't lose more than 5%, right? Makes sense?
Yep. That makes
If
sense.
I did the Joe Sixpack approach, well, technically Joe Sixpack, he could risk all the way up to 50% of his investment, right? Which would be, where would that be? 30. That would be down to that level there. right? 50%. You see that?
Yep.
Roughly. I would actually, if I was trading this, little old lady, they're not trading. So there is no stops. You don't have to worry about that. But if I was trading this W, probably take the Joe six pack approach and maybe risk like 12, 13% of my money. And if we do break below these lows, you have to get the hell out of there.
Okay, that
You
makes
just
sense.
have no choice. Does that make sense?
It does.
So you might do the Joe six pack. You take a 13, 14% hit on your capital invested. That's reasonable. That's not unreasonable. But you just have to understand there are different ways to approach that 5% rule.
Yeah, that
So,
makes sense.
as we said,
So,
if this turns into some sort of fractal from that weekly chart, then what it probably means, if we go ticking through this low, it means we're probably going to take out that low. And remember, we said Joe six pack, he bought this level here, and he can risk 50%. But if you play W's, that's a pretty good looking W. Don't get me wrong. If you play W's and we break this W, then you just got to get out. You got to take the loss. And now this gets back to my original question for you. You've already answered it, but you didn't understand that you answered it. So let's see if
yeah.
we can turn it around and let's see if you can answer this.
Okay.
By definition, if I'm following my rules of investing, I know explicitly this trade, this W, is going to fail about how much a percentage of the time. And I have to get stopped out if I did the Joe six pack approach, or, especially leverage traders or margin traders or futures traders, you absolutely have to get out. But if I'm, anybody other than a little old lady,
Yeah.
and what do I have to expect the percent, and really even little old lady, but they don't really care. But how often do I have to expect that W is just not going to work?
60, 70%.
Wrong. Nice try. Way
Ah,
to go.
damn it.
What is the other side of the equation? Because remember,
Okay, then
60 to 70% is
33.
how often we'd like to see this work.
Yeah, 33.
30 to 40%.
30 to 40. Okay.
And this is where actually most quote unquote traders, most new traders, they just don't get this. Is
Okay.
that if you are going to be a trader, you have to be comfortable with taking a loss. And it's just part of the game. So anyway, that's a very long-winded way of saying
Yeah.
there's really no way of predicting whether this is going to absolutely work or not. You just got to roll with the statistics. Have you ever heard me say to you in the past, well, by definition, we're nothing more than statisticians.
Statisticians.
That's what
Yes.
we do. Now, you want to try and higher octane this trade? This W technically sort of represents that maybe this is a new uptrend, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Which means that if this is a new uptrend, then maybe that's the trend line. So
Okay.
maybe what you
Run
do
along that.
is you let the W come in. Then you're going to, and you see it working its way up. Then you're going to draw your reload zones. And you're going to say, if I get in a situation where the market pulls back and tests the primary trend line, and it's in a reload zone, look, there's Brian's favorite fib. And in fact, we
Uh-huh.
might even say, you know what, this will be our venture cap reload zone. Remember what that is.
Yep.
So that's
That's the
like,
88.6.
yeah, 88.6. So let's throw that on there. Where is it? There it is down there. Look at that window. So now I am going to religiously hunt trend line tests in reload zones. I'm not going to buy the W. I'm going to try and buy this event here. And if I get any kind of, if we get a bullish fractal down here, Or heaven forbid, we actually even get maybe like a W that happens to come in there. Well, then I'm going to buy that.
Gotcha.
Now, if I do that and I risk to a break of these lows, now you can see my risk is quite a bit smaller. So keep it simple, stupid. I'm just going to buy the big fat W's. Well, that means by definition, you're going to take, in this particular case, 11% risk. I'm going to
Gotcha.
hunt reload zones against trend lines, and I'm going to look for buy signals down in this zone. Well, now I can cut that risk in half. And this is actually what they call the difference between price risk and information risk. So just buying this W, you're kind of not really getting the best price. In this case, you're buying great price, but you just don't know whether this thing's actually going to bottom yet. So you're taking like information risk. Having said that, it's not really a right or wrong way to trade. The most appropriate way to trade is what works for you as an individual. You might
Makes
find
sense.
that a lot of times this thing goes up and it just doesn't look back. And then you're like, oh crap, if I just bought the W, I would have been stinking rich, right? Remember that one that I told you, the Loom, right?
Yep.
Loom just didn't look back. Whoops.
It's still pumping. But I see in the
Right?
comments, Shola, you asked about Chainlink. Actually, in the last show, if you look on our channel, we did a huge in-depth. Spent a lot of time on Chainlink. I know we're kind of running short on time, so you might get better off. Um, I think you're. I don't know why I was saying no
Was it
data.
USDT?
Because yeah, look under
It
all.
tried to,
It tried to go.
here we go. I can't
But I
remember
think we
which
had
one.
mentioned that we were waiting for it to. We needed it to confirm the W. I think we
That
were.
was a weekly W, eh?
Yeah, we're waiting to confirm it. I set a price alert for 8.44, and it's funny. Another
Never
price
came
alert
in.
went off for me today, and I thought it was this one. I like quickly like ran and checked my Coinigy account because I thought that it was the link hitting that.
Okay,
But
so here's a good example. You see the W came in here on the daily charts, and it just never looked back, right? Just straight up.
yeah,
So, yeah, we had talked about whether this was investment grade, and I said, well, if these weekly W's start coming in, then oh boy, look out.
yeah,
And we had sort of said, keep your eyes peeled on this high right here,
844.
845. But what's this candle pattern now? Boom,
Yeah.
boom. Uh-oh.
Oh, uh, Doji?
No.
No, in inside bar
Yeah, it is an inside bar, and it failed.
and an Empire.
No, not an empire. That doesn't look like that
Omar,
thing.
you got me in trouble.
But this is an inside bar, and also too, baby's body is fully inside mummy's body. I
Yep,
would call this a bear rammy. I don't really like to call this harami because part of
I like
baby's head
that.
sticking out of mummy's body. But nonetheless, it is technically Japanese candlesticks, a bear rammy, a harami, a bearish harami. But I would call this an inside bar, and unfortunately, it failed here. So whatever the rally attempt was off of the bottom, it stalled out, and it makes sense. I think I showed you earlier our crypto breadth universe. It's not very happy at all right now, right? I think I showed you this. The algorithm that we run on the site, which works really, really well, it's flashing major breakdowns here for crypto. And frankly speaking, listen to what that Caroline Ellison or Caroline, whatever her name is, the way that she's just basically throwing crypto under the bus here. And even Gensler himself, that's fucking awesome. I hope he
Yeah,
gets charged with criminal conspiracy.
that'd be
That would
awesome.
just be so poetically appropriate.
Yeah,
So, and it just goes to show that this is why, I think I can't stress it enough. Do you see with Mr. Gensler's behavior why something like a constitution is so incredibly valuable because he's part of the government. Wait a minute. I thought the government were good people. I thought government did the right thing. I thought
Hmm.
government was they're in it for the public's best interest. Wrong. I mean, you can't be
Wrong.
more fucking wrong in this world. These cocksuckers are evil. That's
Yep.
why having a constitution is so fucking important in this world. And again, I got to give a hats off to you Americans because you look at my country and the people that are in charge are literally trying to set up a communist state here.
Yeah.
Individual rights, suck my you know what. Which is so tragic. So,
So,
so tragic.
so
So,
Brian, I do actually have one more that we did have a request from the on Twitter. I know we're kind of getting up there in time, but it's ZRX was the
all
one
right.
that they requested.
ZRX. And my apologies, everybody who's watching this. I know I'm very political and I'm probably blabbing away about stuff that you don't really care about. My apologies.
It all matters.
So, all right.
Um,
What do we want to look at it versus US dollars? Do we want to look at it
yeah,
versus
let's
on
do that. Let's see
Binance or where do we want to look at
Binance
this?
US.
This probably won't have that much data. This is one of the Z coins. These things have been around forever.
I'm looking at actually, honest. I know you don't like Bittrex, but they got some data.
Well,
That
yeah. I mean, the funny thing is Trex has been around for a while, right? So,
yeah,
and then also USDT. USDT has not been around that long.
yeah. So
So you
yeah,
can see this going back to 2019. I mean, this coin came out way, way, way before that.
yeah.
So this, I will say, this. Remember we were talking earlier about what do bottoms look like? They look like these saucer bottoms. So that is looking very saucerish. And then also too, what I like to see is they basically just brought the market back down against these previous lows. So you could argue this is starting to look kind of saucerish. So I like that. That's if I was, little old lady nanny nibbling. I want to build a portfolio of names, and I'll just be banging out doubles and then reloading when they come back down to earth. Blah 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 blah. You know how my story goes. Take
Mhm.
$500, turn it into bazillions of dollars. Well, that's what I'd be doing on this thing. So coming down in here and nibbling on this thing down here, I think that's acceptable. Is it trending higher? I don't know. We have the old adage in the market, buy when it snows and sell when it
Oh, when it
goes.
goes.
So I do see that there was a very good seasonal trade. Last November, man, they were just giving this shit away.
Yeah.
And Litecoin was the great catalyst there. And basically, Litecoin rallied into its halving event. Very cliche, totally normal, very typical. And then, we rally here into the spring. You can see there's April, there's May, snow leaves, and unfortunately, that was the end of the rally. And in a weird sort of way, this year, Mr. Fink kind of really screwed with the markets there. In May, June, he sort of artificially put a floor in price that really would never should have been put in, with him barking about how he wanted a Bitcoin ETF, and all the sort of ETF people all got all circle jerky about it. And it kind of, there was what was the fundamental event in Ethereum that happened back in the spring? I think it was called Shanghai or something like
Yeah,
that.
the Chapella Shanghai
Right.
thing.
So I think that, and then of course the Litecoin halving event, those were sort of the fundamental drivers. So Shanghai, if I'm not mistaken, if you look at the ETH chart, the market like literally topped right on that Shanghai event. Um, so the way that I would look at this kind of thing is we are going through, keep in mind, you can't give this shit away now. So, in the public's eyes, this stuff is all a fraud. And of course, this FTX trial is going to bring that to the fore. So, this is exactly the kind of name that I would be wanting to be accumulating. Having said that, do you see any W's here?
No, it doesn't.
Not
I guess
really,
like
eh?
on a wider scale, but no, not in
I mean,
immediate.
this thing went down and then
Yeah.
literally straight up.
Yeah.
That's not W's, right? Remember grade three
Yep.
English teacher, right? We want to see that.
Yep.
Miss Krabappel? I think I was grade four. Does she still work there in Oregon?
I don't know.
Do you know who Miss Krabappel is?
Miss Klabobble.
Krabappel! And then what's Lisa's teacher's name? She's got a weird name. Remember, you're from Oregon, right? So anyway, Simpsons
Oh, from The
references.
Simpsons. Yeah. Edna.
So yeah, Edna Krabappel. That's right. Smokes
The
like a
Kerbopple
chimney.
Flanders.
Krabappel. Anyway, so do we have any W's here yet? I don't think so. We did have the market try and turn up here. It was sloppier than slop, though. Very sloppy. Um, Also, too, do you notice how they left a hole in the price charts here? I don't know whether you can see that or not.
Oh,
What's the statistical probability that this hole will need to be filled in with price
like
exploration?
91.2 or something like that.
Pretty
Something
good.
crazy.
91. Well, call it 90%.
90%.
90% is a pretty damn big number.
Yeah.
It's not like 5, 10%. 90% is 90%.
Yeah.
So the fact that it left this gap here, oh, what a big surprise. Here we are in the process of filling this gap in. And honestly,
Oh
I
yeah.
don't even think this gap has been filled in yet. Because what we
Correct.
really want to see is we want to see a candle body actually fill this hole in. And we came in here, tails, yeah, that's not enough.
I
So
said
I don't know whether this
price.
thing has actually even finished its bottoming process.
Yeah,
If we're
my next.
lucky, this turns into like a down, up. We come back down. We test these lows. And what you'd really love to see is a nice little W right down in here. That would be awesome.
Picturesque one.
But, we get this kind of W that comes in here and we get price to go up through here. And then you'll know that, all right, looks like we got a bottom working. I did, you did see me draw these down trend lines. Boom, 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 boom. So if we do get a W on the other side of this trend line, we've got something to work with.
So
And then
we'll
what I
keep an
would
eye on it.
ask, kind of like what John was saying there earlier, why? I mean, I don't know whether you saw it. I don't know if we saw it clearly or not. But why was that FXS looking WE here? Let's see if we can show you this here. Because I'll tell you, the chart looks pretty damn interesting down here. So weekly basis, interesting. We rallied into the 13 EMA and we're kind of stalling
Yeah.
out. So, man, a little bit of a fail signal there. But can you see that if we get down, up, down, breakout, that's your big fat W. So, and actually this would be called what's an Adam and an Eve bottom. It hasn't come in yet. Keep in mind this is a weekly chart, right? We had a little bit of a daily bottom there. And if you look at the daily chart, I love what's going on here. I mean, look at this war here. This looks awesome. So down, up, down, breakout, then rally up, then fail, come right back down against these lows. You see how there's a cute little inside bar that tried to
Yeah.
fire there. They made new lows on this thing, and this happens to be on Poloniex. I don't know whether this will look the same across all the exchanges. But if you can, kind of like the link, I would
Mhm.
definitely put an alert on this one above this. What is that? $5.95. If we break up through here, then oh boy, all hell's gonna break loose. Um, but what was the big thing that I said was one of the reasons why I really like this name right here?
Um, for FXX.
Actually, interesting how look at that. So check this out. Remember I was making reference to gaps earlier? Notice that big hole. So what's the percentage time that the market was going to come down and fill that hole in?
91%.
And do you see how candle bodies came down and filled that hole?
You're right.
So perfect. So, what was it about this that I was like, you know what? You really ought to pay attention. It's got fundamentals. It actually
Yes.
has news that's driving this thing.
I've
So, I
added an
don't
alert.
know about the ZRX. I don't know whether there's any fundamentals that are driving this story. Interestingly, you can see there is a bit of a W here that is trying to work. I suppose you could argue, and actually interesting too. Remember, we said there was that price gap, and you can see on the dailies they did have a candle come down and fill that. Um, it also too, in a nutshell, and keep in mind this is on Trex, so this probably isn't the best place to make this comment. We probably really want to see like actual exchange that has some liquidity on it.
Let's
Uh,
see.
Trex is the only one. That's too bad. Um,
Binance, Coinbase, I think is it should have. I don't know.
ZRX. Oh, this is recent. Let's do all. And then we'll go USDT. Let's see. You know, Binance obviously is pretty popular, but there's Binance right there. So this probably looks pretty liquid. Let's see what we got here. All right, there you go. Yeah, again, actually very different than that Trex chart, eh? Be
Yeah,
careful if you're going to do your analysis on Trex. What does this image kind of look like to you? If there was like a
low
way to
volume,
describe this, what would you do? How would you describe this?
low volume,
Right. The way that the word that I would use is thin.
thin.
So you can see, like, look at this. I mean, there were days where this thing just didn't do anything over here, right?
Yeah.
Very messy, very thin looking chart. So if you're going to do your TA, it's a good idea to do the TA off of charts that look full, right? Lots of trading everywhere.
Go if you go to the search bar, it just do the USD, and there is a Coinbase one that
Oh
I
yeah,
checked.
look at that. They got a whole bunch of them. And these are actually versus US dollar. So that's actually a good thing. And this is on
So
like
Coinbase
stamp
is
I would can actually interesting. Look how thin this is over here though.
yeah. I'd
So
be
in a
curious to
weird
see
sort of
those
way.
Coinbase ones.
Sorry, oh, you want to do the Coinbase?
Down a
Right
couple.
here.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what you got here. Okay, that's looking better. But okay, so just our conversation here. I mean, this is our V bottom from last winter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't really like to try and sneak in on these things. And half of the reason why and do you remember what's my expression that I'd use? V bottoms by definition need to what?
I don't know. I don't
Be
have that.
tested, right?
Be
Because
tested. V.
half of a W is a V, right? So there's the V bottom. If we go down and test that low and turn back up, then it turns into a W, right?
Yes.
So in this particular case, it was a pretty substantial rally, though. Could you have gotten a double off? Yeah, you could have. It would have been close, right? That's like 15, 16 cents. And the ultimate top was 30 cents.
30s.
So you could have come back to me and said, well, Beamish, what the fuck? I don't give a shit about your W's. Look at this huge rally. But notice, look what happened. Down, up, and here we are right back down at these lows
Yep.
again. So I would prefer, it would have been better had last fall we put in a nice W there. And then I would feel like that's got legs. The fact that it was a V should have sort of warned you that at some point we're probably going to have to come back down. I mean, you might
Yeah.
have traded this W, but this would have been more of like a trade considering how far away from the lows we are. And maybe what I would have said was if you had bought this W in here, maybe fog and bomb this and look to just take it's a trade. You're gonna like Joe six packs. That means you're gonna buy that level and you're gonna risk to here. So your risk on your trade is 36% of your capital. All right, so there's a good example. What did we say Joe six pack maximum risk was?
30,
No,
33.
50% of his capital, Joe
Okay.
Sixpack. So here you risk 36% of your capital. It's a typical Joe Sixpack trade. But what you probably want to do is things like, what did we say was sort of the minimal acceptable profit objective that you'd like to see if you're going to buy something?
The minimal 60 to 70.
No, 2 to 1
I'm
risk reward. You ever heard me
okay.
use that
30.
reference?
Okay, the 33. I am just butchering that
All
one today.
right. So anyway, there's 2 to 1 off of that. Yeah, it's kind of suspect. You might have said, well, okay, Brian, I'm going to fog and bomb this and I'm going to take profits at foggy boggy levels.
Yes.
And so maybe you're going to try and take some profits at 2.618.
4669.
I doubt we get to, if yeah, there's 4669 way up there.
I mean, we
Yeah,
hit that.
maybe you took some profits into this level here. I'd also say too, remember gaps like to be filled. So 90% of the time, should look for a candle body to come up into here so you can see how they did that. And then we'd also say if this is still a bear, because keep in mind that's a big fat M there. So does it not make sense that anybody who wanted to short this is probably going to be hunting reload short zones? So that's 78.6, 61.8. So what a surprise, the market stalled out up in that level. So this would have been like a marginal trade idea, not really that great. Would have been far better had this thing come up, come all the way back down into reload zones down here. Right, there's Brian's favorite fib, 78.6. If we had had a W come in down here, and then you had done things like 2 to 1s and shot for
Yeah.
reload short zones to take profits, then that would have probably produced something like that as a trade. Which 2 to 1 would have been you're just taking profits on a test of that high off of that low. But that never happened. So I don't really even think I would have been interested in quote unquote trading this. There's just nothing set up here for me. Um,
Understandable.
so what I would
Oh,
say is now, after this big rally, if you're interested in hunting levels, there's our reload zone. There's Brian's favorite fib. Can we get some sort of W to come in down here to frame an appropriate risk? Right, something like that. So you can
I
see how we
do.
came down. We V bottomed off of those lows. We rallied right back into these highs. Then we came all the way back down and we tested that low again. And then you can see there's a pretty good fight going on down in here. Could you say, well, Brian, I'm going to buy, it's really sloppy, but down, up, down, breakout. I'm going to buy that level there. I'm going to risk to a break of these lows, that low right there. Or we can just do a horizontal line off of that level there. And that's going to be my risk window.
Pretty good eyeball on that drawing there.
Yeah, you think maybe I've probably done this once or twice in the past, eh?
Yeah.
So 2 to 1 risk rewards. Interesting how we had a big spike up into these highs. You can see all these guys are sleeping on the couch. They got this rally and they went, get me the fuck out of there, get me out of there, right? I mean, it's so
Yeah.
cliche how this stuff happens. And they've trapped a whole bunch of new bulls sleeping on couches in this wick up top here, right?
There it
So I
goes.
wouldn't fault you had you taken this trade. And it does kind of look like maybe if you had just even said, I'm just going to risk this range here. So can I get like a 2 to 1 out of this just to take some profits? Maybe I'm going to go along there, going to risk to there, and where is a 2 to 1? So that would be right there. So that is that, and actually explains a lot why this rally was a woohoo, look at me, I'm a bull, I'm a bull. Then all of a sudden,
Mm.
somebody started selling and it drove it right back down into the ground. Can you see how it's probably these guys who bought this W here that are selling and taking profits, right? Because there's your 2 to 1.
Yeah. Smart
The
people.
really, really, remember we had said really slick trade would be to let the market break out and then hunt reload zones on the way back down. So maybe you're watching. There's Brian's favorite fib. What a coincidence. It's right off the original bottom. Happens all the time. So if I was thinking about trying to hunt like a level to try and sneak my way in, we're coming into attractive areas. And ironically enough, we're just coming into the original bottoming zone. So if somebody was willing to step up and defend this down here, remember what did we say this 2-bar pattern was? This bar here, and that, actually it's not exactly the same, but kind of railroad tracksy,
Roads, yeah,
nice little
I can see it.
reversal candle in there. You could have maybe framed that as an entry. That'd be a little bit more advanced. But I do like the fact that the 78.6 happens to be basically against this original bottom area. I think because of what's going on with the broader sort of crypto space right now, I mean, it's really all depends on your temperament.
Yeah.
But, if we do happen to lose this trend line, support line low, maybe let a W come in here to actually prove that, yes, this thing is actually bottoming. But I wouldn't fault you if you said, you know what, I'm just going to throw my stink bid in down here and maybe I'll just risk to the break of this low, and we'll live with the results. And then, as I said there originally, and these are all the risk takers: Joe Sixpack, margin trader, leverage trader. Little old ladies, I don't really have a problem with somebody just saying, look I'm going to earmark 5% of my portfolio, and maybe like once a month, once every couple months, I'm just going to go in and buy
Right.
1%. I bought
Okay.
1% there. I'm going to wait maybe 6 months. I'll buy another 1%. Maybe wait another few months. I buy another 1%. Maybe wait a few months. I buy another 1%. And just slowly accumulate your position in this thing. Once you hit 5%, you're loaded up. Can't buy anymore. I wouldn't have a problem with that. And that's sort of the keep it simple, stupid approach to investing that works pretty damn well.
Crazy.
So there's the trader's perspective and the little old lady perspective, and I would just simply say, would investors be interested in this name, like mutual fund guys and Larry Finks of the world and all that? They want to see those weekly W's, right? They actually
Hmm.
want some anecdotal evidence that this thing has actually bottomed. And I don't know whether I see that yet. I think they would just be like, yeah, I'm skeptical. It tried like the Dickens. If anything, what I'd probably say right now is, in fact, actually, probably this is the best way to look at this, is this thing is stuck in a trading range right now, where even just this recent price action, right? I'd even go like there and there. Say that's the top end of the range, that's the bottom end of the range, and we're just playing ping pong back and forth. It's cheap. Uh, Half of my job, like I said, 2 years ago, I would be sitting here pulling my hair out trying to stop you people from buying this stuff. We're not in that environment anymore. We're in the
Yeah.
environment now where I don't have a problem. Just go slowly,
Take your
patience,
time.
discipline, accumulate. And when this thing does start doubling, start banging out doubles. Put a little bit of money aside for the tax man, of course. And then if you want to do the reload kind of idea, every time we dip back down into reload zones, just go and reacquire, looking for the absolute insane blow off top into these cycle peaks, which seems to happen about once every 4 or 5 years. Now, name could probably make you rich. Because what is it?
That's
It's
what we're
like
here
20
for.
cents right now, and those old highs are 10x these prices. So,
Yeah. Awesome. Well,
okay, that is 7:30. So I've
I was gonna
already
say, yeah, we're
talked
about two and
way
a
too
half hours
much.
in, so maybe we start wrapping it up. But thank you for that, and thank you for to the audience and everyone who was contributing and giving us some of these names. I know that John, you mentioned LDO. I made note of that, and we'll be sure to bring that up for next week.
I do like LDO actually, or
Okay.
LDO. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Lido, right? Yeah, you're on to something. It's same sort of idea. I mean, I should probably stop talking, but versus Bitcoin, you can see it's against that. You know what? We'll take a look at this in earnest next week. So,
Beautiful. All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to like the video, give us a thumbs up there if you got something out of today's video. Give us a subscribe, and then keep an eye on our social media for our announcement on Coinigy. And on that note, we'll see you guys next week, and goodbye for now.
bye bye, everybody.